Spanning tree portfast. Now in this video we'll see a feature, a Cisco proprietary enhancement to the spanning tree to speed up the convergence on the access ports. Now if you just go back to the basic spanning tree behavior, like let's take an example. I have a switch which is connecting to some of the access ports. Now whenever I provide a connection on this particular port, by default the port goes through listening and learning stages. Now this listening and learning stages is the default behavior because every port goes through a spanning tree verification where it is going to take some 30 seconds of time before it actually transitions into forwarding state. So once it confirms that there is no possibility of loops or there's no BPD messages on this particular port, and it's going to put the port into forwarding state, but after 30 seconds. Now because of this default behavior of the spanning tree, let's take an example. There are some services which might get affected. Let's take an example. I have some DHCP server here, and probably whenever you power on the PC here, it's connected on the port, and whenever you power on the PC, it's going to send some broadcast request requesting a DHCP server to assign the IP address, but the switch is not going to forward that particular messages till 30 seconds. So which means you have a 30 seconds downtime by default on each and every access port, and because of that downtime there might be cases like some of the services like DHCP service requests may not reach the DHCP servers, and that is something we really don't want. Now let's verify the default behavior. I'm going to connect this PC on port number 1, and if I go to the command line and verify the default behavior of the spanning tree here, if I give show spanning tree, you can see the port number 1 which I connected to the end host is going through some listening state, and after some time you'll see the port goes into learning stage before it actually transitions into forwarding. I can see the port is still in amber color now it turns to green. Now the port transitions into forwarding. That is the default behavior. Now we actually don't want this behavior. Now what we can do is we can add some enhancement to the default spanning tree behavior, where on this particular access ports we can disable spanning tree. So in fact we are not disabling spanning tree, we can say we are going to enable portfast feature which will allow the particular access ports to transition into forwarding immediately without listening, without learning, bypassing the listening and learning stages. So which means once you enable portfast, these particular ports will not go through with listening and learning stages. So there's no more listening learning stages, and the transitions immediately into forwarding. So when you enable portfast, it means automatically you are disabling the spanning tree on that particular ports, and you need to be very careful because if you do this on the port which is connecting to a switch or a hub or any other device where there is a possibility of loop, so it's really not, you need to just keep in mind that you enable the portfast on the ports which are connecting to the switches or hubs, because it can cause temporary loops. So portfast has to be enabled on the port which is connecting to a single end station, and if you're going to enable the portfast on a port which is connecting to another networking device, it can cause a temporary loops. So that's something we need to ensure that we are not enabling the portfast on the links connecting to switches. So once you enable portfast, so administrator is going to ensure that these ports, they are not connecting to any networking devices or the switch or a hub, and we are saying that these are connecting to the end devices and there is no possibility of loops. Now this way we can save that 30 seconds downtime initially for access ports. Now to enable the portfast on the access ports, either we can go to the specific interface and we can enable it by using a range command. If you want to enable on multiple ports, we can give a command called spanning tree portfast on the interface specific, or we can enable the same command globally. So by using this command called spanning tree portfast default. Now if you're going to enable the portfast or globally in the global configuration mode, it is going to make each and every access port will automatically be enabled with a portfast feature. So which means the trunk links will not be configured as a portfast. Every access port will automatically become a portfast port. So either we can define a specific interface or we can make every access port to go into portfast state. So let's go to the command line here for verification. I'm going to switch 1 and I'm going to configure interface range F0 by 1 to 10. So I'm assuming that the first 10 ports are going to be connected to my end devices, and then I'm giving a command called spanning tree portfast. Now once you enable this spanning tree portfast, you can see there is a warning message which says that the portfast should be enabled only on the ports which is connecting to a single host, and if you have any if this particular port is connecting to hubs, concentrators, switches, bridges, any of the networking devices, it's going to create some temporary loops. It's just a warning message, and then it says that the portfast has been configured on this 10 interfaces due to the range command which we have used, and portfast will have only effect when the interfaces are in non-trunking mode. So right now these ports are not in a trunking mode. So now for verification, what I can do is I can have some connections on the end devices on port number 2, port number 3 and port number 4, and I can go and verify with show spanning tree. Now I can see port number 2, 3, 4 immediately transitions into forwarding state without listening and without learning. So this is how we can optimize. It's a Cisco proprietary feature of speeding up the convergence on the access ports, and it can be enabled either interface specific mode or global configuration mode. So depending upon the requirement, part of the configuration, you can go with any one of these configurations. Now both will have the same impact on the switches.